My dad tried to control what I wore to graduation, so I gave him exactly what he asked for. I walked across my high school graduation stage in a wedding dress, not because I wanted to make a statement, not because I thought it was funny, but because my dad gave me no other choice. I'm 18F, and last month I was supposed to have one of the happiest days of my life, graduation. I had worked my ass off to make it there, late nights finishing essays, cramming for AP exams, pulling shifts at my part-time job just to save for college. All I wanted was to celebrate with my friends, take photos in a dress I felt beautiful in, and finally feel like the future was mine. But my dad decided my body, my clothes, and my choices were his business. It started when I showed him the dress I'd bought online with my own money. It was a pale blue maxi dress, flowy, sleeveless, with a simple square neckline. Nothing flashy, nothing inappropriate. I even sent a photo to my best friend to double-check. She texted back, "Girl, it's literally perfect. You look like you're going to a graduation, not a club." I walked into the kitchen holding it up, expecting maybe a neutral grunt. Instead, he looked me up and down like I'd committed a crime. "You're not walking across that stage dressed like some cheap girl," he snapped. I laughed at first, thinking he was joking. "Dad, it's literally just a dress." His face turned red. "You're not embarrassing this family in front of the entire community. Change it, or you don't go." That's when I realized he was dead serious. I tried reasoning. I told him other girls were wearing the exact same style. He didn't care. He pulled out his phone and started showing me dresses he thought were appropriate. High neckline, long sleeves, floor length, basically funeral attire. "You're representing this family," he said. "Dignity matters more than comfort. People talk." I stared at him, speechless. My graduation, my day, somehow had turned into his public relations campaign. Later that night, he sent me a text. "You're not wearing that thing. End of discussion. Order something respectful or I'll pick it myself." I read it 3 times, shaking. It wasn't just about a dress, it was about control. He needed me to perform respectability for him, no matter how miserable I felt. I vented to my group chat. One friend wrote, "What the fuck? It's literally a pastel maxi dress." My cousin wore shorter. Another said, "If he makes you wear that Amish funeral gown, you're going viral for the wrong reasons." That's when something clicked in me. I'd spent years shrinking myself to avoid his outbursts, changing clothes before leaving the house, deleting posts he didn't like, letting him talk over me. I thought graduation would finally be about me, but no, he was determined to make it about him. And for once, I didn't feel like backing down. I didn't fight him directly. I smiled, nodded, pretended to agree. "You're right, Dad. I'll return the blue dress." He looked satisfied, like he'd won. But that same night, I sat on my bed, scrolling through eBay listings until I found it. A secondhand wedding dress. White satin, lace sleeves, floor length, complete with a little beaded belt. It was ridiculous. It was over the top. It was everything he claimed he wanted. Dignified, covered, respectable. And it was about to be the most humiliating thing he'd ever seen. I ordered it with rush shipping. The confirmation email hit my inbox at 12:17 a.m. I stared at the words, "Estimated delivery Thursday," and laughed so hard I cried. The next morning, he glanced at me over his coffee. "So, did you find something better?" "Yeah," I said sweetly. "Don't worry. I'll make you proud." For the first time in years, I meant it. Just not in the way he thought. The box arrived 3 days later. I dragged it upstairs before he got home. I pulled the dress out and hung it on the closet door. It was absurd, layers of white fabric spilling onto the carpet, lace glinting under the light. I stood in front of the mirror, imagining myself walking across that stage while everyone whispered. For once, I didn't feel powerless. The night before graduation, I zipped the garment bag shut and slid it under my bed. My mom passed my door, paused, and glanced inside. Her eyes flicked to the bag, then back at me. She didn't say a word, just gave me a look I couldn't quite read. Half warning, half sympathy. I barely slept. My phone buzzed with a final message from my dad at 11:43 p.m. "Remember, no nonsense tomorrow. I want you to look presentable. This is important for all of us." I stared at it until the screen dimmed. Then I tucked the wedding dress into my backpack. On graduation morning, my classmates posted selfies in their pastel dresses, flowery rompers, and cute jumpsuits. My best friend sent me one and added, "See you at the stage." "Please tell me you're not in that funeral gown," I just replied with a smiley face. I slipped the dress on in the school bathroom while girls touched up their lip gloss and adjusted their caps. They gasped when I stepped out. One whispered, "Are you serious?" I adjusted the beaded belt, smoothed the lace, and nodded. Dead serious. And as I walked toward the gym where the ceremony was starting, I felt every pair of eyes. If my dad wanted me to look respectable, then fine, I'd give him a respectability he'd never forget. Graduation morning had barely ended when the fallout started. My dad didn't say a word on the car ride home. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel, his jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. I sat in the passenger seat in my wedding dress, veil tucked into my lap, pretending to scroll through my phone while my notifications blew up. Girl in a wedding gown at graduation was already on TikTok. The clip had a few thousand views, then 10,000, then more. People were tagging me in group chats, asking if I'd lost a bet or joined a cult. Some thought it was hilarious, others called it sad. By the time we pulled into the driveway, my dad finally broke the silence. "You made a fool out of me," he said, voice low and dangerous. I swallowed. I wore exactly what you asked, something respectful, something that covered me. Don't play games, he snapped. You embarrassed this family in front of the entire community. Everyone will be talking for years. Maybe they'll be talking about how you freaked out over a perfectly normal dress. I shot back before I could stop myself. His head whipped toward me so fast I thought he might hit me. He didn't, but the silence that followed was heavier than a slap. That night, he called my mom into the kitchen. I listened from the stairs as he ranted. She's trying to destroy me. My clients were there. My coworkers were there. Do you have any idea how this looks? Mom's voice was quiet, careful. It's just a dress, John. It's not just a dress. It's rebellion. She needs to be taught respect before she ruins her own future. I crept back to my room, shaking. On my desk was the graduation program, my name printed neatly between hundreds of others. I'd wanted to circle it, save it, maybe frame it. Instead, I folded it in half until the paper tore. I opened my laptop and wrote an email to my school counselor. Hi, Ms. Reynolds. I know graduation is supposed to be happy, but I feel like I can't breathe at home. My dad controls everything I wear and says my body is an embarrassment. Yesterday, I wore something extreme, just to prove a point. And now he says I've humiliated him forever. I don't know if this counts as emotional abuse, but it feels like it. I don't feel safe here. I hesitated before hitting send. Then I clicked. The next morning, Miss Reynolds pulled me aside. She asked if I was being forced to wear clothes against my will if anyone had threatened me. My dad had already called the school, insisting I was just a dramatic teenager. He says you exaggerate, she told me gently. But I need to know your side. I nodded, biting back tears. I'm not exaggerating. He wants me invisible. And if I push back, he'll punish me. Her face hardened. Thank you for telling me. We'll document this. I walked out of her office with shaking hands. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just between me and my dad anymore. Other people were watching, and he hated that more than anything. By the end of that week, the gaslighting began. My dad called every relative within driving distance. At dinner, I heard him pacing the living room, phone pressed to his ear. She humiliated me on purpose. She wore a wedding dress. Who does that? She's making up lies about me at school. You know how teenagers are. The next day, my aunt texted me, Honey, I heard you've been giving your dad a hard time. Just try to meet him halfway, okay? It's your big day, not worth the fight. Meet him halfway. As if wearing a funeral shroud to my own graduation was halfway, another relative messaged, Your dad just wants what's best for you. Don't make this bigger than it is, I wanted to scream. How do you explain to people that being told your body is shameful, day after day, is big, that it eats you alive until you start to believe it? At school, I couldn't escape the whispers either. That's the wedding dress girl. Some laughed, some asked if I'd lost a bet. A few called me brave, but most just stared. My best friend tried to cheer me up. She sent me screenshots from our group chat. Jess, her dad's insane. It was literally just a blue dress. Maya, she should have just worn it. What's he gonna do, ground her? Jess, you don't know him. He'd ruin her life for it. I scrolled through the messages over and over, my throat tight. They were right. I'd spent years surviving by calculating how to avoid his anger. This time, I hadn't just lit the match. I'd thrown it on a pile of gasoline. That weekend, he cornered me in the hallway. You think you're clever? Everyone knows you're just doing this for attention. I laughed, bitter. Attention? You mean like the attention you get from controlling everything I do? His eyes narrowed. You've always been dramatic. You twist everything I say. I never called you shameful. I just want to protect you, but I had the receipts. Screenshots of his texts telling me to cover up and order something respectful. The email from Miss Reynolds, documenting our conversation. Even the group chat threads where my friends confirmed how bad it was. I stared at him, a surge of clarity washing over me. You don't want to protect me. You want to own me. His face turned purple. Careful, he hissed. That night, I lay awake scrolling TikTok. My graduation clip had hit 500,000 views, comments flooded in, honestly iconic. Her dad probably forced her into this, respect to her for flipping it. This is sad, not funny. She looks terrified. I read every single one. Some made me laugh, some made me want to cry, but they all proved one thing. People were finally seeing him the way I had for years. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel completely alone. The week after graduation felt like living under a microscope. My dad barely spoke to me unless it was to lecture. Every word out of his mouth dripped with contempt. You've ruined my reputation, he said while pouring his coffee. Do you understand the damage you've done? I wanted to laugh. His reputation was the only thing that mattered, not my feelings, not the fact that people at school whispered about me like I was a circus act, just his fragile image. By Thursday, he had started sending me links again. This is what you'll wear to the senior banquet, his texts read. Floor-length black gowns, buttoned-up blouses, shapeless skirts. I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because I already had a plan. That night, I sat on my bed scrolling through online listings. I clicked past endless prom dresses until I found it, a Victorian-style morning dress. Black lace, long sleeves, high collar, complete with a veil. It was dramatic, eerie, suffocating, exactly the kind of modest dignity he demanded, turned up so high it would choke him. I stared at the photo until my hands shook, then I hit, "Buy now." When the package arrived 2 days later, I dragged the box upstairs before anyone noticed. Peeling back the tissue paper, I couldn't help but laugh. It looked like something from a haunted house. I slipped it on and faced the mirror. My reflection was ghostly, funereal, completely wrong for a teenager about to attend a school banquet. And that was the point. I snapped a picture in the mirror, sent it to my best friend with no caption. Within seconds, she replied, "Holy shit, you're insane. Do it." Her words made my chest tighten with both fear and exhilaration. Maybe I was insane. Or maybe this was the only language he understood, obedience taken to an absurd extreme. That evening, Mom came into my room without knocking. Her eyes landed on the dress draped across my chair. For a second, she looked like she might say something, but she didn't. She just pressed her lips together and walked out. It hurt more than if she'd yelled. Her silence wasn't neutral. It was surrender. I hung the dress in my closet, the black fabric swallowing the light. Every time I opened the door, it loomed there like a promise. I started keeping a journal, scribbling late at night when I couldn't sleep. If he wants me invisible, then I'll disappear in plain sight. If he wants dignity, I'll give him a coffin's worth. If he wants control, I'll hand him a mirror and let him choke on the reflection. The night before the banquet, I zipped the garment bag shut and laid it across my bed. My dad knocked on the door. "Got your outfit ready?" he asked. "Yes," I said, voice steady. "Good," he grunted. "Don't make me regret trusting you again." I smiled in the dark after he left. He had no idea. Tomorrow he would see exactly what his definition of respectable looked like, when I turned it into a funeral for his control. The senior banquet was supposed to be a celebration, a last chance to eat, laugh, and say goodbye before everyone scattered for college. Parents sat at round tables with plastic tablecloths, teachers handed out silly awards, and everyone dressed in summer dresses and button-downs. Normal, safe, except me. I walked in wearing the Victorian morning dress, the black lace veil covering half my face. Conversations froze mid-sentence. Forks clinked against plates and went still. "Is she okay?" I heard someone whisper. My classmates stared like I'd stepped out of a horror movie. Phones came out instantly. Someone muttered, "She's the wedding dress girl. Now she's the funeral dress girl." I sat down at our assigned table. My dad's face drained of color. He tried to force a smile, nodding stiffly at his coworkers. "She's experimenting with modest fashion," he said, voice tight. A teacher came over, concern etched on her face. "Sweetheart, are you all right? Did someone tell you to wear this?" I lifted my veil slightly so my voice carried. My dad said dignity matters more than anything. He wanted me covered. "I'm just doing what he asked." The teacher's eyes flicked to him. He cleared his throat and waved it off. "Teenage rebellion. You know how they are." But the whispers around us weren't going away. By dessert, half the room had their phones out, filming. When they announced the Most Likely to Speak Their Mind award and my name was called, I stood up in full mourning attire. The applause was hesitant, scattered, but the cameras flashed nonstop. I caught my dad's expression as I walked back to my seat, a perfect mix of fury and fear. For the first time, he wasn't in control. By the next morning, the clips had already gone viral. Girl shows up to banquet in funeral dress, hit TikTok's For You page. Some laughed. She's writing her dad's obituary in real time. First a wedding dress, now a funeral dress. Someone give her an Oscar. Others didn't find it funny at all. This screams control and abuse. Look at her face. That's not rebellion, that's survival. Her dad's sitting right there. He looks terrified people are onto him. The split made my stomach churn. It was one thing to be a meme. It was another to have strangers online dissecting my trauma. But then I saw messages sliding into my DMs from girls I didn't even know. My dad does the same. "Thank you for showing people what it feels like. I thought I was crazy for feeling suffocated. You're so brave." For the first time, I realized the story wasn't just mine anymore. At home, my dad exploded. He slammed his phone on the counter. "Do you know what you've done? My boss saw this. My clients saw this. You've destroyed years of hard work." I kept my voice calm. "I wore exactly what you wanted. I covered everything." He grabbed the back of a chair so hard it creaked. "You're twisting my words. You're making me look like a monster. You don't need my help for that," I said before I could stop myself. His face went purple. For a second, I thought he'd lunge at me. Instead, he stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture fell off the wall. That night, I opened my phone again. One clip had hit 1 million views. Someone had slowed down the footage of me lifting my veil and saying, "My dad wanted me covered." The caption read, "This isn't rebellion. This is a cry for help." The comments beneath were brutal. "Call CPS. This dad should not have custody. She deserves better." I scrolled until my hands shook. It was terrifying, but also liberating. Because for the first time in my life, people finally saw him the way I did. By Monday morning, the school counselor, Miss Reynolds, called me into her office. Her tone was gentle, but her face was serious. "I've been getting calls," she said, folding her hands on the desk, "from teachers, from parents, even from some of your classmates' families. They're concerned about you." I sat stiffly in the chair, my palms sweaty. "Because of the dress?" Because of both dresses, she corrected softly. And because of what you said. That your dad wanted you covered. Is that true? I stared at the floor. He doesn't like anything I wear. He says my body is shameful, that I embarrass him. She wrote something down, nodding slowly. Has he forced you to dress in certain ways? Yes. My voice cracked. That's why I wore the wedding dress. And the black one. I wasn't rebelling. I was just following the rules to the extreme. Miss Reynolds leaned forward. I need you to understand, this isn't normal. It isn't healthy, and it isn't your fault. Her words made my chest tighten. I wasn't crazy. That afternoon, my dad got an email from the school. I know because he stormed into my room waving his phone. They're asking questions about me, he snapped. You've dragged our family into some kind of investigation. It's not me, I said quietly. It's you. You're the one who made rules I couldn't live under. His face darkened. You're poisoning people against me. I'm your father. You owe me respect. But I wasn't shaking this time. For once, he was the one backed into a corner. By the next day, a social worker scheduled a meeting. Standard procedure, they said. My dad tried to spin it as teenage rebellion. But the school had receipts. Screenshots of my email, statements from teachers who'd overheard me, even the viral videos. For the first time, his word wasn't enough to erase mine. That night, the fight finally exploded. He slammed my bedroom door open so hard it hit the wall. Do you have any idea what you've done? People at work are talking. Clients are asking questions. This is bigger than you. I stood up, clutching my phone. It's always about you, isn't it? Your clients. Your reputation. What about me? What about how I feel? You're my daughter, he barked. You don't get to ruin my life because you want attention. My voice rose before I could stop it. I didn't ruin your life. You did that yourself. I just stopped covering it up. His face twisted with rage. Careful, he hissed, stepping closer. But I had already hit record on my phone. His words, sharp, venomous, poured out while the screen captured every second. Mom appeared in the doorway, her hands trembling. For the first time, she didn't stay silent. She's 18, she said, voice shaking but firm. You can't own her anymore. He spun toward her. You stay out of this. No, she said. I've stayed out long enough. The room went still. His fury met her defiance. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was standing alone. When he realized neither of us was backing down, he slammed his fist against the wall, leaving a dent in the drywall. Then he stormed out, the front door rattling on its hinges as it slammed shut behind him. Mom sat on my bed, silent for a long time. Then she whispered, I'm sorry. For all the years I didn't say anything. I looked at her, my throat tight. Do you think he'll ever stop? She didn't answer. That night, I uploaded the recording to my cloud, labeling it Receipt 3. Between the texts, the emails, the viral clips, and now his words on video, I knew I had enough proof. Proof that this wasn't just rebellion, proof that I wasn't crazy, proof that my dad was exactly who I'd always known he was. And for the first time, the fear in my stomach wasn't stronger than the anger in my chest. The week after the confrontation felt like walking through the wreckage of a storm. My dad stayed out of the house most nights. When he did come home, he barely looked at me or Mom. The silence wasn't peace, it was punishment. But something had shifted. The school counselor checked in again. This time, she didn't ask questions. She handed me a pamphlet for a support group. Teens of controlling parents. You're not the only one, she said softly. I think it could help. I went. Nervously at first, clutching my backpack like armor. But when I walked into the circle of folding chairs, I saw faces just like mine. Kids who knew what it felt like to be micromanaged, policed, told their bodies were shameful. One girl said her mom checked her outfits every morning. Another said her dad deleted her social media. I wasn't alone. After the session, I sat in my car and cried. Not because I was broken, but because for the first time, I felt seen. At home, Mom tried to bridge the gap. She knocked on my door one night holding a box. Inside was the pale blue dress I'd bought weeks ago, the one that started all this. I found the return slip in the trash, she admitted. I couldn't throw it away. I thought, maybe someday you'd wear it. I touched the fabric, my throat tight. Why didn't you say something before? Her eyes filled with tears. Because I was scared. But watching you stand up, God, it made me realize how long I've been silent. For the first time in years, I hugged her without feeling the weight of his shadow between us. Meanwhile, the internet hadn't moved on. The graduation and banquet clips were still circulating, my inbox filled with messages, some kind, some cruel, but the ones that stuck with me were from strangers who whispered the same thing over and over. Thank you for showing what it looks like. Thank you for not pretending it's okay. The irony wasn't lost on me. My dad wanted me invisible, but his control had made me visible to millions. Summer came, and with it, college acceptance packets. I packed my boxes slowly, savoring the thought that soon I'd be hundreds of miles away. My dad barely acknowledged my plans. He avoided eye contact at dinner, muttering about tuition and wasting money on rebellion. But he didn't stop me. Maybe he knew he couldn't. Maybe the viral clips had taken away his last shield of credibility. The day I left, he didn't come outside to say goodbye. He sat at the kitchen table, staring at his phone, jaw clenched. Mom hugged me tight by the car. "You're free now," she whispered. College was a blur of freedom, choosing my own clothes without fear, going out with friends, laughing without watching the door. I kept going to therapy, unpacking years of shame I hadn't realized I carried. Some nights, though, the memories still crept in. His voice in my head, telling me I was embarrassing, shameful, too much. But now, I had tools. I had people who reminded me those words weren't mine to carry. One night in the dorm, a girl recognized me. "Wait, you're the wedding dress girl," she gasped, pulling up the clip on her phone. My stomach dropped, but she wasn't laughing. She was crying. I showed this to my mom. It made her realize how controlling my dad is. "You changed my life," I didn't know what to say. For so long, the attention had felt humiliating. But in that moment, I realized the story had become bigger than me. As for my dad, he hasn't changed. He still texts me occasionally, short, sharp messages about family reputation. I keep them saved in a folder, labeled proof. I don't respond. Mom and I talk more now. She's in therapy too. Slowly, we're building something separate from him, something that feels like our own. Sometimes, I rewatch the clip of me crossing the graduation stage in a wedding dress. At first, I couldn't stand it. The whispers, the stares, the absurdity of it all. But now, I see something different. I see a girl who stopped shrinking. A girl who turned her father's rules into his undoing. I didn't plan to become a meme. I didn't plan to go viral. But if it took a wedding dress, a funeral gown, and the whole internet watching for me to finally step out of his shadow, then I'd wear it all again. Because that was the day I stopped being his reflection and finally became myself.